Welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders, a weekly talk show with local and national thought leaders discussing issues impacting the Black community. Now introducing our host, Miss Anne Marie Sorrell.
Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders. I'm your host, Anne Marie Sorrell, President and CEO of the Mosaic Group. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. Before I get started with our broadcast, I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. Thank you to Demesmin and Dover Accident Attorneys, AARP, Florida Lottery, and All of Us Research Program at the University of Miami. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Javonte Edmonds, who is the state representative, new state representative for Florida's House of Representatives, District 88. Welcome, Javonte.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here with you and discuss some of these issues that are coming up in Tallahassee. So thank you, Anne Marie.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, before we get started, I've known you for several years. I think from the time that you graduated from FAU, and you were leading some Black men there.
Yeah.
Young Black men. So I know you've been working in the community for some time, and you've had an opportunity to work through the ranks with other state representatives and state senators and other elected officials. And we're going to talk about you in a minute with your nonprofit. But I just want to start by saying that, seeing you from a college grad or, all the way working your way up to now representing, District 88 in the State House, kudos to you. Thank you. Just that drive and community engagement and all that you've been doing for people in our community at such a young age. So just super proud of you.
Thank you, Emily. I really appreciate you. Is there a lot of feedback on my end? I'm sorry if there is. But it's truly because all the people who've invested into me, all the mentors I have. I always got to give props to the state senator, Bobby Powell, who straight out of college, he was the first person I worked for in the Florida House of Representatives. And I got the opportunity to work for him for 2.5 years. And that experience allowed me to truly identify what purpose I can have in the state legislature and learn how to pass a bill, learn how to bring money back home to our county. So I got to give kudos to State Senator Bobby Powell, Representative at that time, Al Jaquette, who also allowed me to work in his office. So it's a plethora of people, Mac Bernard, who really have loved on me, educated me, and made sure I was in a position to be that I'm in today. So I think all those people, especially Dr. Robinson, who does not play, have always kept me personally making sure that as a man that I'm always upholding who I should be.
No, that's awesome. And before we jump in, I just want to give a quick, background for you, for those who don't know, or this is maybe their first time meeting you virtually. Javonte is the founder and CEO of Suits for Seniors, the nation's fastest growing youth preparedness program. He prides himself on being a public speaker, entrepreneur, educator, author, philanthropist, and the youngest male state representative of Florida. He is the author of Adventures of the Rich and Famous and To the Moon and Back. The books appear on bestsellers list for Amazon. Mr. Edmonds is known for being an outspoken advocate for education and leadership. He has dedicated his career to improving the rights for all, especially for minorities, women, the elderly, children, incarcerated individuals, and the homeless population. So, and that's just a brief synopsis. In your own words, just briefly tell us about this journey of yours and why you felt like this, public service is your purpose.
And thank you for that. That's an amazing question. So I really say it starts with my mom. I grew up in a single parent household. I have an older brother named James, but my mom is my rock, my core. She's the person where I got my values from. Growing up, I still don't know how she had 2 or 3 jobs trying to provide food, put food on the table. But the thing about my mom, she was everybody's mom. And that's something at the time that I was very jealous of, that I used to hate that everybody wanted my mom. But it also taught me what public service was really about and how you can actually make an impact on others. I watched my mom have 2 jobs and also be the executive director of the Police Athletic League in Titusville, Florida, which was where I was raised, in Titusville, which is East Orlando for those who don't know. And the sacrifice and commitment she had with those kids who were going through one of the hardest situations to get them to go to college and be some of the most successful people, such as James Bland, who's a great movie director out in LA now. But it's just amazing to see how much commitment you can have on the youth and what that can foster. So that led me to really open it up to Suits for Seniors, my nonprofit, which is an 8-week mentoring course. We teach leadership, financial literacy, how to go to college, career, trade, be an entrepreneur. We even talk about domestic violence and mental health. And at the end of that program, we give all of our students brand new tailored suits. And it's special because for some, they have never had a suit, or for some, they live in families of 4 to 5 and they've only got hand-me-down stuff that's been passed down to them. So if you look at any of the pictures, I posted a picture of someone's father the other day on my Facebook, and his mouth was just wide open looking at his son achieve such an amazing accomplishment. And it's really the suit that's the icing on the cake, but it's also the mentors you meet, the expectations that we give them, the realities that we show you that you can be almost anything you want to be by showing you a mentor who's done what you're trying to accomplish. So we can say proudly we've increased our students' GPA at least by 0.6 if they've graduated our program, allowing them to get more scholarships and have access to better schools. We've also given out $30,000 in scholarships. We've helped over 1,600 high school students. We have a 100% high school graduation rate and 95 college entrance rates. It's special to me to see after 6 years that we still have an organization that's thriving, expanding, and trying to create more impact. It's in particular in the Black community and our Black and brown boys. So this move to being a state legislator has been a great blessing because it really allows me to be a greater public servant. It's hard to identify with some of the old ideologies of politicians, how people view politicians. I don't feel like I'm a politician. I feel like I'm just someone who just want to make an impact and change. I don't have an ego in it. I don't need any money from it. I just want to see, in particular, our Black folks thrive. You know, throughout history, we have never got our share of the cake or piece of that pie. So I'm looking more than ever to identify solutions to identifying that piece of the pie that we can eat.
Well, that's amazing. And like I said, I think your work in the community has definitely spoke for itself over the years that I've been watching you, which is probably about maybe 8 or so now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So let's kind of dive into your role as new state representative. And, I just want to put this out there because I think the people of this particular district has seen so much change and turnover. And so I want to just kind of first start by asking you, and I'm very candid, Representative Edmonds, is there going to be stability in this seat for the people of District 88? Because we've had quite a bit of turnover, and we need really good, consistent, strong representation for District 88. So I want you to tell us how you plan on ensuring that there's some stability, and that if a great opportunity comes, you may not just kind of jump ship.
And I really appreciate that question. And as you said, in the past, in the past couple of years, we've had some turnover in our state representative, which is unfortunate as it is such an important position. And we've went without representation without a year in this past session. But one thing I can say proudly, I hope it does not come off arrogant whatsoever, but I would like to be the best state representative of District 88. I've had the opportunity to work for Senator Powell, Representative Jaquette. I love Mac Bernard. I love Commissioner Addie Green, Priscilla Taylor, Hank Harper, and Omari Hardy. All those men and women have held this particular seat. But I would like to be the best. And when I say the best, I would like to provide the most events that cause change and service for the community. When I say the best, I would like to bring back the most money home from Tallahassee to serve that community. So I would love to be in this seat for the 8 years that it is given. I think being a state representative is one of the greatest honor I've ever had in my life, to be able to make a tangible change, bring millions of dollars home back to my community, to potentially create a law that can help the generations that will come after me. So I will be here for the long haul, and I'm just honored to serve in this position.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. So let's talk about some of the, what's your vision for this seat? You talked about bringing money back home. What does that look like? Of course, you're a lawmaker now. We know that there has been, I don't even know what to call this last legislative session that we've had with so many I don't even know what to call them, that these issues and laws that have been signed in by the governor, everything, and more that he's trying to pass. So everything from Don't Say Gay to the woke to so many others. So tell us, what's your vision, and what are the hot button issues that we, as a Black community, particularly in Florida and in District 88, should be paying attention to and should be speaking out about?
Right. And one thing as a state rep, hopefully in my endeavor throughout the years, I would like to have some type of strategic Black plan, something that we know that we're following, so we're hitting step by step. And I have a lot of different visions and agendas that I have. Some that are personal, some are specific to the Black community, and some are overall to the state of Florida. A lot of things are happening in Tallahassee, as you stated, and what we're calling them are culture wars, such as the Don't Say Gay bill, such as the Stop Woke Act. Those are things that have taken up so much time and argument in the legislature that has truly overlooked the important things that our actual Floridians, people in my district, really need, which is home ownership. My biggest focus right now is home ownership, not affordable housing, home ownership, a house that you can have, that if you want to sell a year or two later and build equity from, wherever the case may be, that you have that opportunity. Home ownership where you don't have so many requirements and regulations and income stipulations that prevent people from having access. So my biggest plan right now is finding ways to have home ownership programs in my district in particular. But when we're talking about the state of Florida, we have this thing called the Sadowski funds. Everyone talks about it. It gets swept every year, but this year was actually fully funded. It was about $363 million for affordable housing. And $100 million is going to be reserved for basically public servants, first responders, social care workers, for them to have a $50,000 homestead exemption. So looking at how we can have first-time home buyers program, how we can lower the cost of home owners insurance, and again, just being able to have that accessibility for home ownership is my number one specific focus that I'm looking at. The second biggest piece for me is education, because that's what I truly feel like I specialize in. Is funding of education. And I really think it has to be home ownership and education, because they go hand in hand. The better your home ownership is the better the property tax, which increases the value of your school. The better the school, the more the property taxes. So focusing on having a support system for teachers. When we're talking about teachers, we're saying the well-being, their support, and everything from the bus drivers to the administrative and the front desk. We have to look at a full, robust plan, how we can get back on that scalable bonus increase for teachers and make sure that we respect and honor our veteran teachers. So those are my two top priorities, but I don't want to be long-winded.
No, that's good. When we talk about education, what are your thoughts on the whole critical race theory issue?
One thing is, as we've seen throughout time, I've rarely seen any legislator or any judicial branch really be in support or favor for Black folks and supporting Black folks. I feel like this is just another example of, this is our time to really be a community again and focus on how do we educate our kids, whether in the churches or at home. I think in the coming years, we will need to find new strategies on how we fight Republican laws that look like this. But I think this is key for us to really empower ourselves as a community. The things that they have in this bill is just ridiculous. It leaves lawsuits open up to teachers, and more importantly, the state to pay, and that's taxpayers' dollars. So I'm hoping that this law will be at least tried in court after it goes through at least. But I foresee this, again, being another issue that comes up in the future on them banning the principles of acknowledging Black history and things of that nature, and what we're trying to do to move forward. So I think it's incumbent upon us to really have our Black organizations together to make the initiative themselves and move around government in general.
Thank you for that. And then what about what I can't even remember the woke. No woke. Don't be woke. Stop woke.
So stop woke. It's a crazy bill. And I'll explain. It's simple. Someone would say it's the white fragility bill. Essentially, it says in a school or in a corporate office, you can't say things or teach things that would invoke someone to feel guilty about their particular race doing something. So, for instance, if we were talking about the Holocaust, we couldn't talk about it in such a manner that someone of a German background felt hurt about us talking about the Holocaust. To that point, he would then particularly sue the teacher or the school district or the state. And that's the same thing that you can align to slavery as well. And that's how the bill is kind of wrote. So it's a terrible bill. But I think, again, it's the best time for us as a community and the churches to preach our own history and tell our own story.
Yeah, it's a very subjective bill. And, you know, if you're going to talk about history, anything in history is going to evoke some type of emotion or opinion. Whether it's a happy emotion or guilty emotion, it's going to evoke some type of emotion. That's just what history does, right? History is not always pretty from any angle. So I think that's so unfortunate that this is the type of foolishness we have to deal with in our government, in our state. And then the Don't Say Gay bill. And I got a few others I'm going to name off, but I just want to kind of get your thoughts on them. And also just kind of make sure people are understanding that these are the things that was just, you know, passed in our last legislative session.
Right. And the Don't Say Gay bill, and it just actually got signed to law today. He just signed that particular bill, but it basically outlaws any education on the LGBTQ community from K through third grade. It's a horrendous bill. Again, it's putting teachers in uncomfortable situations. But I also think this is the time for us to go back as a community. Is this something that we as a community need to talk to our kids about? And how do we get around the implications that the government will have? We have, unfortunately, a majority Republican legislator, and we have Ron DeSantis who wants to be the president. And he's doing anything to really empower that base. And we got to be prepared that this is going to continue to happen. But how do we talk about these things at home in our community to make this adjustment and also create a plan to combat these issues?
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. And then there's the 15-week ban.
Oh man,
the abortion ban.
That I think that bill probably hit me the hardest or hit me the most. Is just because I just don't think us as legislators, us as men, should have any opinion on women's rights. We don't know, or we can't experience what they go through. In a perfect world, I would love to just see a council of women make these decisions and a panel of educated women make these particular decisions, because it's just ridiculous. How can you move from 22 weeks to 15 weeks? And it also rules out incest or rape. And it's crazy. You understand. So
yeah, no, I'm just perturbed to say the least. This session has been a complete war on all women, minorities, LGBTQ communities. It's just been a war on various communities. And so I'm trying to say, I think there was one other one, but I'll move on. But I just wanted to just kind of get your take on some of these issues. And so I know how can I forget this one? This actually impacts my seat, where there was a bill to first eliminate soil and water districts across the state. Oh, yeah. And now, instead of eliminating, the bill was passed to actually create much more complicated and difficult eligibility and requirements for someone to run for and hold a supervisor of a soil and water conservation district. And this is more in favor of farmers. And, you know, as much as I came from the ag community, I'm in the ag community, but it prevents citizens and people who have an interest in our soil, in our water, in our agriculture to have a voice without having these very stringent requirements. So I don't know if you're familiar with that one, and what's your take on that? Of course, we're making a push to try to veto that bill that law that the governor signed.
I got to look more into it, but I could tell you this particular session, they were intruding on home rule in various aspects, from your position to the school district, trying to create term limits to 12 years for the school district. They also created an elections police. We've had fair and transparent elections in the recent past, but Governor DeSantis felt the need to create an elections police. And I don't really know the powers of those election police. Can they throw out votes? Can they disenfranchise voters? No one really knows. They got a couple $1 million in their budget So we have to be aware and very, I guess, paying attention to what's the next moves as DeSantis moves for presidency.
So, with that being said, this is not a political show by any means. So for anyone out there that's listening, but I think it's important that, and that's why we do this show, because we want to bring the issues to the community, to the forefront, so that people understand and they can make an informed decision. We have an election coming up in November.
Correct.
So let's talk about that. Our vote is being disenfranchised already. We already saw the consequences through this past legislation with our governor, as well as not just the governor, because he's not the one who brings the bills,
right.
But he definitely has to sign them into law. But even the legislation, right. that continues to be a heavily Republican. So there's no balance of power in Tallahassee at all.
Not at all.
So what do you have to say to voters who this impacts every day? In some way, form, or fashion, whether you have children in school, whether it's a woman and it's your reproductive decisions, whether it's what you can and cannot say if you're a teacher, or if you're a student, or if you're a parent, whatever that may be.
Right.
All of these different rights, or in some people's eyes, privileges, are being impeded on. So what do you have to say to the voters out there as we go into this really big midterm election cycle?
Well, there's a lot of things going on here. And I want to also keep in mind about redistricting going on. We're going back to Tallahassee next week for special election. And I mean, we mentioned that the governor really doesn't give us legislation, but he's given us the maps basically to vote yes or no on. And there's nothing we can really do in that particular situation. So that redistricting issue is going to be a huge topic to talk about. Also addressing property insurance. We may be able to do something special about homeowner insurance, But there's also open carries on the table right now. So I don't know if you've heard the rumors about it's called constitutional carry, but they're trying to make Florida potentially an open carry state. And what that means is you can brandish your gun out in public as long as you quote unquote don't threaten someone, but you can it's a wild, wild state. So there's a lot of things going on. And even with all those issues, abortion rights, the don't say gay to stop woke, one thing I would say to all my residents, all my constituents, is that there is hope. There's 100% light at the end of this tunnel. This country is still moving. The state is still moving in a positive direction. We have less and less sickness and COVID. There are increases in wages coming. There are increases in home ownership. And there are conversations about making the change. And I think that's one of the most important things. We are coming to the table. We are looking for solutions. So there 100% is hope that things will get better. And that's most important that everyone has to know. I don't want there to be fear within our community, which is constantly spread. What I have to say is that we're building relationships. Unfortunately, we have to build relationships with the Republican Party. And it's a matter of education. Unfortunately, they do not come from the same backgrounds me and you come from. And that is a process of understanding and how do you deal with that? And then how do you take that and make a change with it? So I know in this upcoming session, I'm going to be introducing some interesting legislation that I hope that will get passed to get through. Some things that we talked about since the days of 40 acres and a mule to really challenge this process about what Black folks deserve. And I think as we've seen, as Black people come together and build our base, we are more powerful than any particular party. And I think as we continue to have our agenda and we grow and we increase our voting base, we need to make sure politicians from the local to the federal level are held accountable, and they have an agenda to what they're going to do to work together with people and other electeds to actually bring tangible hope and change back home. So I can tell you again, I'm working with people to make a tangible change. I'm going to propose legislation that is going to be very impactful and powerful, at least in the message. And 3, I'm always going to continue to listen to people and see how we can change anything from the district level to the state level.
Okay, well, I definitely look forward to seeing what you bring to the forefront. I think that you make a great point, 2 points that I think are great points to anyone who's listening out there. Number one, having an agenda. I think we've struggled for years locally, nationally, about what, quote unquote, the Black agenda is. So right. I'd like to finally see what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you about it.
Yeah, well, if you want to share a snippet of what the Black agenda, sure, go ahead.
And sure, I mean, I kind of talked about it because what I'm trying to do in proposing legislation, but to backstep, it's really home ownership and creating actual communities and not just neighborhoods, right? So right now, a community, I would say that's like Westward and West Palm Beach, the North Shore and West Palm Beach. They have an agenda of where their community wants to go. Roads that need to be paved, parks that need to be put in that community. When you're just in a neighborhood, you just live, you don't even know your neighbor. So there's no intrinsic community trying to increase the value of that community and area. So us as Black folk have to get back to building community, right? Once we have community, then we're therefore looking to ownership of businesses. We need economic development. I'm talking LLCs, nonprofits, or even trades, but we got to specialize in a particular sector. As you see in the most Middle East, I don't want to say Middle East, but Asians, they specialize in hair and nails and makeup and things of that nature. Black people also have to have some type of specialty, whether it's entertainment or whether it's consulting, whatever that may be. We need to find our niche as a community and work horizontally and not just vertically.
I got one for you when you're done.
Okay. And the third one is reinvestment into our education. Fourth one is buying our politicians. And the fifth one is buying our media. So if we can do all that as an agenda, then we'll have a lot more control in our community.
I agree. Well, add to your agenda, we need to go back to a place where we are inventors. Correct. So we need to innovate. Technology is so important. We need to be innovators and inventors. And we cannot miss the cannabis train. We paid the price. We're still paying the price. And I'm so over our elected officials not being on the train. For cannabis being an economic equalizer for our community. So those are two places that I know we really need to make sure technology and being innovators and inventors and creators, and also the cannabis industry, understanding what's there from a medical to hemp. You get started with hemp right now for a very low cost for a license in the state of Florida. So people really understanding where the education around it and where the economic opportunities are, both on a career as well as the entrepreneurial side. So those are pieces that of course, we can't leave out transportation and infrastructure, versed in those. What happened in there? Being versed in those areas. So I just want to kind of add that little piece in there.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I really like that. I'm going to run with it. So I know you got to get that.
Yeah, well, it's been, we can talk about this forever. Representative Edmonds, I got to get used to saying Rep Edmonds right now.
That's what everybody says. Thank you.
But congratulations. We look forward to your leadership. We definitely hope you're in this for the long run because we need voice, not just a good, strong voice, but action and people that's going to really make sure our community goes beyond. We got to get out and vote, and that's great. But like you said, we got to have an agenda. We got to have a plan to build real economics in our community. So I'm happy that you have a plan that you're working on. And, any way that I could personally support you, Legacy MIA Media Group can support moving the community forward. We're here to do that with you.
I'm honored and grateful to have the time with you, Marie. You're doing amazing things. And again, thank you for your time.
No problem. Well, stay with me for just a moment. I just want to do a few quick announcements. Of course, I want to thank our sponsors again, Demesman Dover Accident Attorneys, AARP, the Florida Lottery, and All of Us Research Program at the University of Miami for making this broadcast possible. Also, make sure that you check out our new upcoming issue that will feature South Florida's most powerful Black professionals in business and industry, which will be coming out on May 1st. And of course, you do not want to miss the Legacy Gala. We are back, and it's going to be May 14th at the Diplomat in Hollywood, Florida. So you do not want to miss it, and you can get your tickets for $200. Go ahead and RSVP at miamediagrp.com. Of course, we have many shows for you to check out, from art and culture to what's happening with the best restaurants in South Florida, to your health, your money, all of that. So please be sure to follow MIA Media Group as well as Visit our website, miamediagrp.com, and subscribe to our newsletter for all of the great weekly updates, events, and happenings around South Florida. Thank you again, Reverend Edmonds, for joining us, and we'll be watching you. We'll be supporting you as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Y'all get out the vote now.
That's right. All right, everyone, please share this video, like it, subscribe, as well as tune in again with us next Thursday at noon. Have a great afternoon.
Take care, everybody.